Good morning to you and many thanks for joining us. You're watching Galaxy today, coming to you from Galaxy Television. My name is Justin Academy.
And no doubt is also joined by Uche Unyeko. Uche, it is Tuesday and this is the 3rd of July where we'll be looking at FG's plan to share 322 million US dollars Abacha loot. And of course, a whole lot of brows have been raised concerning this. We'll be looking at that in between the program. And of course, we'll be joined by some of our guests from our outstations, and you can as well send in your comments and questions via SMS as the numbers will be written on the screen. Right, Justin?
Yes, well, we'll appreciate to hear from you on this discussion this morning. But the federal government says it will commence disbursement of the recovered $322 million Abacha loot through conditional cash transfers to 302,000 poor households in 19 states this July. Two-court rumor of the National Cash Transfer Office disclosed this at a roundtable on asset recovery organized by the Swiss Embassy in Abuja. The states will include Niger, Kogi, Ekiti, Osun, Oyo, Kwara, Cross River State, Bauchi, Gombe, Jigawa, Benue, Taraba, Adamawa, Kano. The rest are Katsina, Kaduna, Plateau, Nasarawa, Anambra, and internally displaced persons camp in Borno State. Since that announcement, reactions have been trailing that particular development with Sarah coming out to say it is missed target. We'll be looking at all of those issues on the show this morning, and like Uche said, we'd appreciate to get your feedback on the show this morning.
And of course, in starting up the program, of course, Justin and I won't be the one looking at it. We have a guest in the studio before we go to our outstations. We have a chartered accountant in the name Segun Shelleh. Shelleh. Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, sir. So we're looking at the FG's plans to share the $322 million Abacha loot. What's your own view about this whole idea of sharing the money to the poor families? What's your view about it?
Well, sharing the money might not be in the best interest of the country.
Okay.
Because if you look at the criteria, it's been said the monies will be shared to the poor and the vulnerable people in society. So what determines who is poor or who is vulnerable? Like Justin did reel out just now, he mentioned 19 states.
19 states.
And the internally displaced people in Borno State. Now, 36 states the country has. So 19 states has been able to, so to speak, pass the criteria as defined by the National Social Security Office. You know, so how did they come about defining who is poor? You know, who are the perceived individuals that are going to be partaking of this. 5,000 naira per month for these so-called families for 2 years would obviously still leave them where they are after the expiration of the or the full utilization of the monies. So one would have expected that government would look inwards and try as much to utilize these monies for projects, developmental projects that will help the country to move out from where it's currently found itself. The monies in question in the first place are not income that we've earned, is not gains from a business transaction. These monies came about by corrupt former leader, a corrupt former leader, I think that has been established, a corrupt former leader who took so much, in excess of about R1 billion. You know, so this is supposedly the balance of what is left by the Swiss government. Now, the 322 million US dollars can as well be utilized by the government to fund the budget 2018.
Okay, how far can that go? And do you really think that the federal government is willing to do so? Like you rightly pointed out, this is the last stash of a billion. Before now, in total, total of about over $700 million has been recovered.
In 2005.
Yes, since then. And right now, they just released the last batch, meaning the Swiss government doesn't really owe the federal government anything. Before now, a whole lot of Nigerians have said that the federal government has not really been transparent enough with the earlier tranche that was released. Now another one. I mean, Okay, if they were to inject it into the budget, just what are the realities of the present time? What will it really look like this period?
Now let's look at it critically. To start with, budget 2018 is a deficit budget.
True.
Okay.
There is a deficit of about 1.9 trillion in budget 2018. So government would have to get some monies from the domestic market, from banks, through its issuance of bonds and the rest of them, and then we'll go to borrow externally. The reasons are not far-fetched because at the end of the day, you need the monies to foreign currency, that is, to fund some foreign inputs, in the economy. Now you have a possibility. Of course, there is a bill or there is a proposal that is expected to be laid in front of the House of Assembly. That's the National Assembly regarding the government intention to borrow about $2.8 billion. So if you can take out 322 to utilize for projects or processes or programs that would yield immediate results to either, reduce the challenges the average Nigerian is going through. There are issues of power, which has not been fully resolved. Today we hear so much being generated in power, and then there's a challenge in transmitting the power because transmission lines are bad, and then we've had even our perceived discourse having some bit of challenge in carrying on their core responsibilities for which they acquired those enterprises. If government decides to put these monies in specific projects, there is a massive infrastructure deficit in Nigeria. Massive.
Okay, but looking conversely now that they have decided to send to over 300,000 homes across 19 states, although some people are saying it's some unfairness on the part of the other 17 states. What would it translate to economically since the money is not really going to the real sector?
That's what I'm saying. The money still goes back into consumption.
Okay. Do you not think that it's also a way for other government officials to loot?
No, we'll get to that because the money goes to consumption. Okay. Let's look at it from a positive angle. That really the intentions are to give these monies out to people that have been known
to be vulnerable,
that are truly vulnerable and poor. Let's deal with the angle of the politics and the corruption that could ensue in the middle of the entire implementation process. The 5,000 naira will be utilized for what? Feeding.
Yes.
Looking at the present realities, comparing what we have right now, the 5,000 naira, does it really make economic sense?
That's what we're talking about.
It's not even amount to anything in a month.
That's my take. It's not 5,000 per person. It's 5,000 per family.
Yes.
But
so now, we can all agree here that when we talk about families that are vulnerable in the perceived areas you mentioned, these are areas that will be in the hinterlands, where an average family size could be a man with a number of wives and a large set of children. What would 5,000 naira do to them? I think the adage of teaching me how to fish rather than giving me fish should be the way government should should apply this rule or the knowledge regarding these monies. Because if you keep giving them a largesse, 5,000 naira for free money, it kills the initiative of these people to even want to think of looking for anything to do to be able to earn monies, legitimate good monies, to help their family and help their lot. Okay. Now it stifles them. They wait every month, cap in hand, government, where is my 5,000? Now, mind you, the process says it will be credited into their bank account
directly. Yes.
They perceive poor Nigerians. Do they have bank accounts?
Specifically, those ones in the hinterland.
The one in the hinterland. Do they have bank accounts? That's one. Now, when we say perceived poor and vulnerable, you and I know that a whole lot of people lost their jobs between 2015 and now. That are even staying in the cities, and they cannot, and they don't have any money to take care of themselves and their families. Nothing at all. They go beg neighbors, beg family members, friends to help them out. Some have had to withdraw their kids from school because they cannot afford this basic life requirements.
Okay, so let's look at it in this other angle. In fairness to Nigerians, now this is the money agreed was stolen. And it's not just, it wasn't stolen from the poor, it is money meant for we Nigerians. And so, looking at it,
I can argue that because it's actually stolen from the poor.
yeah, it's argued, okay, fine.
Yes,
but
because
it's
when we
still
say money
Nigerian.
stolen, is Nigeria's money for the entire Nigerian populace.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the most vulnerable are the ones who feels this thing. They are the ones who feel it more.
They feel it more, agreed.
Now, sorry.
But my question is,
Okay, go ahead.
how fair is it that you're just going to be, I'm not saying they should share to all Nigerians, that's not my argument here. My argument here is, since this is something we're looking at, you were looking at a way where other Nigerians can benefit from it, either through infrastructure, it could be through education or otherwise. Now, how fair would we say these days if you just center on the poor alone? Even the so-called rich are also in need.
That's what we're talking about. I said someone who has an employment, who before now probably was earning some relatively good monies, and has lost his job some 2 years back, 3 years back. Let's as early as 2015, someone who has been retrenched. Maybe his even office actually did wind up, and then they had to close down, and he's been thrown into the labor market. And since that time till now, he's not been able to get anything to do. He's more vulnerable right now, you know, and then he's not going to be ever listed. And yet, this is also a Nigerian who has lost monies, who can equally pass as someone who does not have any monies with which to feed himself and his family. He's a vulnerable and a poor person. But he's not going to be listed amongst these people. And to start with, when we said 19 states, when we talk about this money being stolen, it's not Naira that was stolen and was taken abroad. It was foreign currencies. How do we earn foreign currencies? From where? Crude oil sales. 90% of Nigerian foreign currencies are earned through crude oil sales. So where do these monies come from? The Niger Delta. Check your list of 19 states.
None of it. Yes, I was coming there. I was going to ask. I hope this is not going to cause some kind of.
No, it has already. So government should have been able to. I mean, each time when ever since the last 2 weeks, when I started looking at this issue of these monies to be shared, I asked myself, could I have been a better alternative? Or what is government's indirect intention? Maybe it's another PR stunt for the administration to shore up his image. It's been low of late, but ever since the June 12 and the MKO recognition thing came, the government seems to have leaped a little in the way Nigerians now see it as somebody who is showing some bit of concern. So maybe this is another way for government. Because I can see a whole lot of political undertone into it.
All right, Shelleh, we'll come back to you now, but we'll quickly have to go to Abuja. We have yet another guest standing by, Dr. George Ubo. He's of the Whistleblowers Network. Many thanks for joining us, George. Looking at the whole process, you know, the $322 million Abacha's loot is going to be shared amongst 302,019 states through conditional cash transfer. Do you really think we have the requisite database to handle this seamlessly?
Good morning. First, I wish to thank the President. Anyone who has the spirit to give to the poor in all religions is recognized. I'm going to look at it from the lens of anti-corruption and, of course, security, the two things that I'm known for. Be that as it may, the problem I have, you just hit the nail on the head, is the issue of database. I have written a blueprint here, and the first thing I proffer to Nigeria and Nigerians is IID, Information and Identity Database. Now, when I listened to the whole program I think on Thursday with the Swiss ambassador and some other Nigerians, the CSOs and all that, what struck me really was the fact that how do you distribute 5,000 naira to certain homes? And I agree with your guest there, without the requisite database. Now, there are certain things you look into as an anti-corruption crusader. You know that there are loopholes that would aid corruption. It's just like when the $49 million was used for CCTV project in Abuja here. We security experts and even the laymen knew from the get-go that it was replete with corruption because you can't set up a CCTV that is just a bit taller than people that are like 5'8", 5'9", feet tall. Now, the loopholes I'm talking about, how do you distribute this money? You're talking about Nigeria where dead people are voting. How do you know that the monies are trickling down to the people it's supposed to trickle down to? And when you go beyond that, you look into the issue of the people involved as well. I will guarantee you that in the next 6 months to 1 year, we're going to have criminal indictments coming out of this, because I am not convinced that these monies will get to the people that it's supposed to get to, because we have not been able to meet the basics, that is making sure that we have the database of the people that are supposed to receive these monies. And that is my take on this. And I'm not sounding pessimistic, I'm just being real. There is no way you're going to convince me that you're going to give poor people 5,000 naira every month when we live in a country where we have been crying for a database of people in Nigeria. You don't have that, and you are telling me you're going to give these monies. It's just not going to work, period. That is what I'm really concerned with. And I stand to be corrected. I know the people involved in it. I have talked to some of them. And some are even telling me that they are getting the database as they are distributing the money. That is really an insult. How can you be collating the database as you are getting the money? So that gives room for duplicative, getting names, fake names and everything. You need to get this. You go on YouTube, you watch some of my videos. I talk about the fact that when a president comes up with a policy, it is up to the cabinet members to put the requisite paraphernalia in place. The president talked about, this is not new, during the election, he talked about whistleblowing, he talked about giving money to the poor and all that. So it is up to the ministries involved to ensure that we get the database. It's just like that, the whistleblower policy when I met with the minister. You can't do whistleblowing when you have 14, 15 agencies performing overlapping functions, when you're supposed to have one whistleblower's office to harmonize all the information. So again, what makes me cry for this country is the fact that we create a lot of confusions, we create a lot of loopholes, so that the corruption, when you talk about fighting corruption first, you need to talk about loopholes. I always give example of when I used to go to South Africa, and how at the airport, you get money for the VAT, all the goods you buy, on the homeland. And after the World Cup, when I went again, the VAT officials told me they don't give cash anymore because some VAT officials and foreigners were caught colluding, to bring fake receipts and everything. And now when you go to the VAT office, they give you a debit card so that they can reconcile all your receipts, make sure that you bought those things from those shops before they credit you, and within 4 weeks to 6 weeks when you are in your country, you go and get the money from the debit card. That is blocking loophole. We have a lot of loopholes in Nigeria, and we create these loopholes ab initio so that we can, practice all shenanigans without record. Because before you know it now, they're going to say, oh, the database crashed, whatever. We have heard these stories so many times. You cannot have a sustainable security solution system. You cannot fight corruption when you don't have database of everyone in Nigeria, database of foreigners. You need to have that in place. You can't convince me otherwise, because it cannot be done. It is not just this process alone. There are so many things in Nigeria that things that are going on that would have been crimes that have been solved if we had database. You go to the ministries, you see a lot of record all over the floor, just because they know in the next year or two they're going to throw those records away, so that all the money stolen, you wouldn't have record of them. I always say that all the cases I've exposed in Nigeria, trillions of naira, a tip of the iceberg. Those are even the ones you have the record of. We have so many cases of corruption that the records have been wiped off. And this is just one of them. I'm not convinced that this process is going to be sustainable. I'm not convinced that these monies will get to the people it's supposed to get to. If you're talking about people that are poor and vulnerable, do they even have the platform to receive the money? I heard that they are setting up the same platform. So it's all baloney. So I talked earlier today on a show I was on. Yes, the president has a strong personality in the fight against corruption. He was, welcomed by Trump at the Rose Garden and everything. But that is building a strong personality. We need strong institutions to do this. If we had a strong institution, that institution would have been able to get the database in place and not just rely on what the president says. So that is what is troubling. And I can bet you any amount of money, in the next 6 months to 1 year, we are going to come back to this. We're going to have issues with people like us. That is what we do, George Ubo Whistleblowers Network. I'm going to be writing them under the FOI, is government's money, to account for everyone that is being distributed, the money is being distributed to. And if they don't do that, we're going to take them to court. Because I just don't see how possible that is. We have a lot of poor Nigerians that they have not and they cannot get to. Because the time is not, you don't just wake up and start doing it. We should have had this system in place a long time ago, so that once the money is getting distributed, you already have the database. You can't tell me that you're going to start the database at the same time that you are distributing the money. Things are being commingled that would give rise to, immense corruption. So as I'm speaking to you, I am really angered, and by next week I'm going to be getting a letter out to the requisite agencies to give my organization all the information for us to sit down and forensically analyze to ensure that these monies are getting to the people that the monies are supposed to get to. Thank you very much.
Since you have the Whistleblowers Network, I just want us to look at the other loots that happened in the past. I mean, that of Tafa Balogun and a host of others that were, of course, revealed in past years. We had nothing about it. In your own, at your own network service, what have you done so far to see that this is also brought to book?
Are you talking Tafa Balogun, the former IGP?
Yes.
I blew the whistle on that because about 729 million naira was siphoned from Tafa Balogun's funds. 15 bank accounts were restrained at Fountain Trust Bank. And when the EFCC calculated these monies, they came up to about 2.2 billion. And of course, Fountain Trust Bank metamorphosed into Spring Bank. But when you pick up your calculator and you calculate the money, it's over 3 billion. Now, let's say it's inadvertence, let's say it's a mistake, but it became a premeditated crime when EFCC transferred this money from Spring Bank to Access Bank, and it is the same adulterated figure that they transferred. In doing this, 729 million naira was stolen. Tafa Balogun called me personally after I appeared at the Senate, thanking me, praying for me, and he mentioned to me who stole the money at the AFCC. So we have been able to go deep into the so-called anti-graft agency to reveal a lot of corruption there. 1.993 trillion stolen. Of course, I went to the Senate and Lamode ran. Now we are in court suing for that. They have not appeared 4 times we've been to court. So this is what we do. And anyone who feels otherwise, we have exposed so many corruption cases. A federal justice that was sacked, 3.1 billion US dollar judgment. We were instrumental in his sack. This is what we do. And I am telling you, based on my experience, that this issue of 5,000 naira disbursement to the poor is replete with corruption. It's replete with loopholes that would aid corruption. And we are going to review it. And I feel very sorry because I have a dear friend that is with that, I spoke to her yesterday, and I'm very disappointed because I'm like, if you were not working for the government, I know you would have been on this side criticizing this process. There is no way someone with your pedigree will tell me that you are going to be giving $5,000 naira to the poor and the vulnerable when you don't have the requisite database. Like your guest said, the states you have chosen, I'm not even going to go into the propriety of whether 5,000 naira is enough, whether the states chosen the Niger Delta state. I'm from Niger Delta. I don't want it to be like a self-serving thing I'm saying. I want to applaud the president for even having the spirit to give. But once he made that known that he wants to give the monies, it is up to the cabinet members now to put the right paraphernalia in place. I wrote the president in 2016, and I spoke on it several times, and I said, sir, while I am convinced you are not corrupt, I further submit that if you do not meet out the requisite punitive measures against your cabinet members when necessary, that you may end up wearing the crown of corruption by omission or inaction, because what the president wants, and that is why he gets the applaud he gets globally. I mean, look at the AU now. He's championing corruption. Donald Trump gave him very good work.
For sake of time, we've been speaking with Dr. George Ubo, Whistleblowers Network. He joined us live from Abuja. We're still looking at the issue of the $322 million Abacha's loot that is to be transferred or distributed to about 302 households in Nigeria. Well, comments are coming in already. I suggest that the money should be used to build different companies in different states for all graduates to get employed to reduce unemployment. That was from Ibrahim Kazim. If they want to distribute money like this, they have to think of the pensioners who are still being owed. The only way is to share it through the bank account details. BVN is there at $5K. I don't really get that last part. All right, please, I would like to know if there is. Okay, I didn't really get that. Good day, presenters. How sure are they that this money will get to the poor? They just want to use the money for their campaign. They should use NGO or cooperatives. If I may suggest, this money must be used for the creation of jobs instead of sharing. For example, I have been looking for a job for years till now. No way.
All right, sir, but I'd like us to look at it from this other angle that the money was recovered from Swiss Bank, and is it not right that it should come with some kind of interest?
I mean, your same feeling we share it is mutual. Because to start with, the monies have been there for how long? This particular tranche, the 322, we learned the Swiss government says they are not the one holding on to it. That the money actually is somewhere in Luxembourg. That the Attorney General of the Swiss government only just stopped the monies from being moved around with the intention of sending it to Nigeria. And then we should understand the workings. The analysis they gave is that the 322 will be released in tranches.
Okay.
It's not bulk. It doesn't. No, it's not the bulk sum. And they are going to, because it's an agreement that was, it's an MOU that was instituted between the Swiss government and the Nigerian government, that the monies should be given to the poor and the vulnerable people in society. It's not even the federal government initiative. Okay. So we need to understand that very well.
Okay.
And the World Bank is the inspector agency. The World Bank is to ensure that what has been agreed on is being done.
Okay.
Now, these monies will be released rather in tranches of what we haven't heard. That at the first tranche they would investigate if what was proposed was done. Otherwise, they will stop the money coming in.
But don't you think that, critically looking at it, don't you think that we were maybe shortchanged looking at how long the monies?
That's what we're talking about. Like you said, we should have actually earned some interest.
Yes.
This is our monies, our assets, put in your country.
So how come are we just at the receiving end? How come we're not laying claims to what is?
The truth is, we don't have these details.
Okay.
Nobody has mentioned that. In fact, we should actually give, if I have to give kudos to this administration, I'll give kudos to the level of information that is available on the recovered or recovery of looted funds.
Okay.
We've not had much of this in times past. So this is the positive, the good that I'm taking away from what has happened this time around.
All right, we'll come back to you. Sorry to just cut you short, but we are getting signals right now. We have to go to Ibadan or your state where comrade Olusegun Abacha is standing by. He is a Labour leader. Looking at it from the Labour perspective, I just want to draw my question from what one of our viewers asked. He talked about pensioners, that pensioners should actually be put, into consideration in all of this because they have toiled and some of them, should deserve this monies. Do you agree? All of this because they have toiled and some of them,
Thank you very much. I want to key into the statement you have just made, without having to sound repetitive of what the other participants have said. Having to distribute 5,000 naira to so-called poor will also engender corruption. But I want to state that the pensioners already have a database in their respective states. Even in the at the federal government level, the pensioners have a database. Workers also that will become pensioners tomorrow also have database. So from our own perspective, we will want to suggest, one, that the money that is going to be realized or has been realized from Abacha loot should be put somewhere and then add all this money that the EFCC has been collecting over the years, add it to it, and then issue out a kind of another bailout to states for workers and pensioners. We already have a database. Sometimes about a week or so, one international organization said that Nigerians, about 75 million Nigerians, are living below poverty level. How do you determine the most vulnerable out of these 75 million people? Remember what happened at the PINE, that is the Presidential Initiative on Northeast. The money that was disbursed to take care of these people in the Northeast was reported to have been misappropriated. And that was what led to the sack of the former SGF. So what we are saying is that this one will go the same way. Who determines the most vulnerable? Who determines the most poor? It will go to party agents, party whatever, and the whole thing will just be messed up. But give this money out as bailout to state governments to pay pensioners and workers. This is our own perspective.
Thank you so much. Ocho, you have a question for him, right?
Yes, I just wanted him to speak about appraisal of Nigerian budgeting process and implementation. Since we're looking at the federal government is actually looking at sharing this money, how, what's your own opinion when it comes to implementing? Do you think this should be fair on the part of those to receive this money? And generally look at the Nigerian budgeting process and implementation.
It is quite unfortunate that the present day set of people at the National Assembly are not working in tandem. They are not cooperating with the federal government. You could see we are in July. The budget has just been signed in July, something that is supposed to have been signed in January. But at the same time, we won't say that because the budget has come late. We want to appeal to the government to make sure that even though the president said what has happened between the National Assembly, the court, the reduction, could make the budget difficult to implement, but we want to appeal to the federal government to make sure that the budget is implementable. The best that could happen is to apply or to present a supplementary budget, which is going to assist in funding all necessary projects that will make life meaningful to Nigerians. It is quite unfortunate that we are in this type of mess in this country. We don't really take our budgetary provisions and implementations so seriously, and it's affecting every aspect of life. So we will want apart from the implementation, we want the budget to be also monitored, properly monitored by those in charge. I mean, even the National Assembly should monitor the implementation of the budget. That's our take.
As we can take from Ibadan and Segun Abacha, Labour leader. Thank you so much. We're back to our Lagos studio. Let's wrap up with you, sir. Okay, still looking at this budget. I know you did mention what you feel or how best way this should be utilized, but do you have any other opinion? I mean, what other way do you think that these funds can be used?
Okay, well, regarding the 322 million,
yes,
beyond directly putting it into the budget, you know, even if it's such that monies are being brought into the country, one would anticipate ordinarily that the federal government, the executive, should get approval from the House of Assembly on the utilization of the fund.
Okay.
So now nobody has mentioned that, because this is not just some small monies coming from just anywhere. This is part of what government have actually mentioned as his campaign promises, that it was going to fight corruption and it was going to, as much as possible, recover all that has been stolen from the country. Now you are bringing in this much money, and then government is getting into an agreement with a foreign government on the utilization of the monies without the House of Assembly being carried along. I don't know, nobody's mentioning that. You know, everybody just glosses over that and they move on. They need the approval of the House of Assembly.
But then again, looking at it
utilize the money.
economically, talking finances now and talking economics right now, you know, Uche asked the guest in Ibadan about the implication. You know, I want you to look at it critically from the financial angle right now. You know, these monies were not exactly budgeted for, and they are coming to the, you know, the national income of the federal government. And what are the implications of spending money that are not really
budgeted?
That's the only intention. When you have a pro bono, a free fund coming in, you don't just spend it. If anything at all, it should be in an escrow account.
Okay.
You know, and proper approval should be gotten from the House of Assembly on the utilization of this extra fund. You know, it was never part of the calculation of the projected income of government. Now, it's something that has just suddenly been brought to fall.
More like a windfall.
Yeah, that our monies that has been out there for a while, now we can recover, it's available to us, we want to spend. And remember that, I think it was budget 2016, 500 million naira, 500 billion naira was projected then by government for the cash transfer, conditional cash transfer, that it was going to use to be able to ameliorate the sufferings of the less privileged through disbursements. That was part of budget 2016. You know, so that went through a process of approval, and the approval was given. So now, if you're going to spend in excess of billions again out of free fund, and nobody's talking about it, I find that kind of funny. But government could have as well, when I say government, federal government, could have as well gone ahead to request an approval of the House of Assembly that we need these monies to be injected
into the economy.
Into the economy through the budgetary system. Because to start with, budget 2018 is a deficit budget. We have to borrow the extra at costs to the Nigeria, to the perceived poor and vulnerable people. If they are not the one going to pay these monies, their children will. Because every foreign loan taken is in excess of 25 to 30 years repayment plan.
So generations are even yet to
That's what we're talking about. So ordinarily, they should have gone back. They say, okay, in as much as we have a deficit budget of about 1.9 trillion, or over 1.9 trillion, we already have this much that we have recovered. And we are talking about Abacha's loot. There are so many other recoveries
that have not been disclosed.
That has not been fully disclosed, which is supposed to be part of these monies to be utilized by government to ensure that proper social amenities are provided for the populace.
Okay, let's see how our viewers are reacting to this development. Good morning. I want to humbly make my own opinion. Nigeria is facing a lot of challenges. The issue of graduates that are unemployed should be addressed with their bachelor's route. Federal government should mark out strategies where unemployed graduates with NYSC discharge certificate should partake in this fund. I take only God, just speaking in pidgin, federal government, I take only God beg, saying that I'm pleading with federal government with God's name to remember the most poor men, or the poorest men, let me use the right English, in this country. My prayer is that may God give them wisdom. That's from Pastor Awubutu David. I suggest the money should be shared to banks for people to have access to via loans with interest. Lawal Olushola from Kaduna State. Trust me, the government knows what to do to end poverty, but chose to do other things to keep people under their bondage. God will charge them according to him. Let's see if I can just take one before we continue. Federal government should use the money to fund the 2017 You Win Connect winners to create jobs. That's from Nonso Alu Juro.
No, I actually was going to come to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Now, these are monies that could be utilized for investment purpose. Rather, we want to consume and still leave us where we are, ground zero. These monies could actually, I expect government to think in that light, to be utilized for investments, generate jobs, employment, by creating the environment through the instrumentality of the banking system.
Yes.
If somebody did mention that, you just read out someone.
Yeah, he said that it should
so
be
if these monies are given to the banks and properly monitored through the CBN, rather than give it out at interest bearing,
yes,
they could actually use it as a grant
okay,
for businesses that, with all the available resources, the Bank of Industry, the central bank itself, with the help of the commercial banks, to inject.
But do you think this will go far? We've had CBN and Cobras program. We have several of such programs. At the end of the day,
but they can never be enough.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Right.
They can never be enough. You're talking of moving out of. The last time it was advanced, how did the country get out of recession? We spent our way out of recession.
Okay.
So that's the way to go also. So inject it and let it come into businesses and organizations that, every government official that has spoken, whether the labor leader talks about pension, talks about salaries being owed, it is consumption. You will still consume these monies and stay where you are. Okay. Government has led the way. This government in the history of the country has led the way in putting so much of its expenditure profile on capital projects. So they should sustain it more and ensure that any money they recover from any part of the country, the world, should be put into investment, capital projects, developmental programs.
All right, more comments this morning from Engineer Abacha. Corruption will travail in this process. 2 years of a family on 5,000 multiplied by 24 months, that's about 120,000 naira. It's another means of looting by this government. That's the opinion of Engineer Abacha. I thought that the money for our budget, I don't get this. Please try and rephrase your comment so we can read it and understand. $322 million is to be shared amongst the poorest of the poor. Ignoring the fact that our government agreed to this, let's go in. Okay, your message was truncated. I thank the last speaker, Dr. George, who said that no database, the plan will fail. My suggestion is part of that money should be used to finance this year's budget deficit. All right. NGOs and cooperatives have database. They are close to the poor. There should be a monitoring group to disperse the monies to cooperatives. All right. My name is Paul Igbiri from Alagbado here in Lagos. It will not. I don't understand this. Try and write us back. The National ID card has a cash wallet facility and database to distribute Abacha's loads to whatever category of Nigerian that the government desired. That's from Jide Ogba in Ikeja here in Lagos. He talked about database. That's another angle to look at now. We've had series of databases and processes and all of that. The BVN, we had the National ID, we had the PVC, we did a whole lot of biodata, and with all of this, how come we still don't have an ideal database or just one centralized database where these things could actually be done through?
The National Social Security
Insurance Trust Fund, in the side
yes.
here.
No. The one handling the disbursement.
Okay, yeah.
Said the reason why 19 states only have been recognized is because other states, the remaining 17 states, have not been able to provide the enabling environment, the infrastructural support for them to be able to generate a database of the poor and vulnerable within those states.
But given that,
So
is it
that the 19 states,
justifiable?
in fact, the argument is some of the 19 states are already, with the help of their governments, the state governments, are doing something in that light in helping the poor and vulnerable. So there is an existing database. So I will not fully subscribe to what Doctor said by saying that there has not been any database. There is something that is existing. And even as it is, the monitoring is going to be jointly between the World Bank and the civil society organizations.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so obviously there must be something with which to check. But you know, remember I said earlier in my opening remarks that the perceived vulnerable and poor probably don't even have a bank account. So they don't have a BVN. They probably have not been captured in the national ID card scheme. So how come we now claim that we have such people? So I can now follow through with what Doctor said. That you have to actually go deep into the local governments of some of these. We've heard of Alimanjaris in the north. So who amongst them have received these monies before from their state governments? Even though they won't be on the street as much as this help has been coming before now. Now, these are the kind of people that we assume should be helped with this fund and the likes of them. But do they have bank accounts? Have they done? Do they even have voters cards? So really, you've not captured them. So it's like Doc said, there is a likelihood for corruption to rear its ugly head again in all these arrangements. Because government will get confused, and they talk by the Swiss government, which is part of the memorandum of understanding that was signed, that if they see that this is not effectively being distributed, since the money is going to be released in tranches, they will stop it. So they will stop the Nigerian money that was taken out from coming back to Nigeria. And I don't know how somebody would agree to those kind of arrangements and apply signatures.
Al Hassan Jibrin sent us a message. He is monitoring from Sokoto State. He says if they are sharing money, they should be thinking of many that are not doing anything. We need work. Let's use this money for something that will benefit from investment and also provide jobs for us. I believe every Nigerian should own a bank account. I don't think so. With the aid of BVN, the share will be shared equally to everyone can from Enugu State. Now, let's just try and wrap up our thoughts right now on this particular issue now. We've talked about database, we've talked about the issue of corruption, I've talked about the budgeting process. But right now, economic justice, even if the 19th state were to get this money and well monitored and after 2 years they got all the monies, don't you think, George mentioned it, I mean, to bring some sort of litigation from other states that will be feeling sidelined?
That's exactly what we're talking about. By saying that my state that I'm resident in have not been proactive enough to generate a structure and a process to facilitate the CCT, the conditional cash transfers, doesn't hold water. I'm still a Nigerian. A poor and vulnerable person will say, I'm still a Nigerian. So why would anybody, because he's residing in another state, should take a benefit against me of something that we both share the same consequences of?
Exactly.
And it's the monies that belong to the country, to the nation altogether. So beyond litigation, that's legalistic. Let's take it from the social justice system process that you mentioned. It's not fair. It's not a fair basis for it will create some backlash for government
over time.
All
right, let's just conclude with some comments from viewers. My name is Lawrence. Most Nigerians are poor. Since we are less than 200 million, I suggest we should be given $1 million each. The federal government should use this money to fund recruitment of more police personnel. For what we have is not enough to fight insecurity. Being today's challenge, that's Manix, Eden State, where good day, please. I'm outstaffing for the past 2 days, so nowhere to turn to. Can you people please help? It's talking about people who need this money at all cost. MBI Godwin from Sulure in Lagos. Federal government has completely lost direction and focus. Well, my advice to Nigerian government is this sum should not only be shared Okay, that was truncated. I'm afraid that's as much as we can take from our viewers on the show this morning. I want to say many thanks to all of you who have sent in messages and who have also joined the conversation on social media. Keep it flowing. It's hashtag Galaxy today. And we also must say a very big thank you to our guest, Uche.
Exactly. We had Segun Shelleh, a chartered accountant. Thank you so much. That's a guest we had here in Lagos. And of course, from Ibadan or your state, we had Comrade Olusegun Abaton, Labour leader. And from Abuja, Dr. George Ubu from Whistleblowers Network. Thank you so much for being part of the show. And of course, to you out there, we'll do this same time again tomorrow when we'll be looking at health. To have a wonderful Tuesday. I'm Uche Onyekuluje.
And I'm Justin Akademi. Many thanks for being a part of the show. Bye for now.